Welcome, weary traveler, to the Chrono Narrator. Tonight we invite you to embark on a journey not through grand empires and famous battles, but into the quiet, often overlooked corners of the past. Let the gentle rhythm of forgotten lives and the steady pulse of ancient routines guide your mind as we explore worlds far removed from our own. As the modern day recedes, allow the whispers of history to calm your thoughts and lead you gently towards slumber. Find your comfortable space, let your breath deepen, and prepare to drift into the detailed tapestry of ancient Rome. Imagine yourself, if you will, not as a citizen of the modern world, but as a young man in the heart of the Roman Empire, perhaps in the late 1st century AD. The year is unimportant, for the routine, the expectations, and the sheer physical grind of legionary life remained remarkably consistent for centuries. You've answered the call, or perhaps you had no choice, and now you stand, not as a proud hero, but as a small cog in the vast disciplined machinery of the Roman legion. Your day, like countless others, begins long before the sun even contemplates rising. The air, damp and cold, bites at your skin, even through the rough wool of your tunic. A harsh trumpet call, or perhaps the shouts of a centurion, tears through the pre-dawn stillness. A jarring alarm that demands immediate, unquestioning obedience. There is no lingering, no quiet moments of contemplation. Every moment is accounted for, every action prescribed. The first order of business, breaking down the camp, yes, every single day. If the legion is on the march, your temporary home, carefully constructed the evening before, must be dismantled. Tent poles, leather coverings, wooden stakes, all meticulously packed. Your personal kit, already substantial, feels heavier in the dark, weighed down by the iron of your helmet. The segmented plates of your lorica, segmentata, the heavy wooden shaft of your pilum, and the short, deadly gladius at your hip. You quickly learn to fold your cloak just so, to tie your sandals with practiced knots, to secure your sarcina, your personal pack, in a way that minimizes chafing and maximizes efficiency. The weight of it all is substantial. Picture carrying not merely your weapons and armor, but also a shovel, a pickaxe, a basket for earth, a leather water skin, a mess tin, rations of grain, a saw, a sickle, and even chains, all bundled onto a long pole slung over your shoulder. 60 pounds, sometimes more. This isn't for a brief stroll, this is for miles, day after day. Through sun-baked dust, through biting wind, through driving rain that turns the unpaved roads into thick, sucking mud. Your calves burn, your shoulders ache, and the persistent chafing of the straps against your skin becomes a dull, constant companion. Food, when it comes, is a matter of sustenance, not pleasure. Your diet consists primarily of coarse grain, which you grind yourself into a rough flour or mix into a watery porridge. Perhaps some dried meat, a piece of hard cheese, or a handful of olives if you're fortunate. Fresh water is a constant concern, often brackish or contaminated. You quickly learn to appreciate even the simplest, most meager portion for the energy it provides to continue the relentless pace. And the pace, the march, the very definition of legionary life, the disciplined rhythm of thousands of hobnailed boots striking the ground in unison. The quiet, almost meditative shuffle of the men in front of you, their backs laden like your own. Conversation is minimal, energy conserved. You learn to recognize the subtle shifts in the landscape, the distant glint of a river, the changing patterns of cloud in the sky. Your focus narrows to the ground beneath your feet, to the man in front, to the steady, unyielding forward momentum of the column. This is not a hike. It is a forced, strategic advance, often into unknown, potentially hostile territory. When the march ends, often in the late afternoon, the work is far from over. This is not a time for rest. This is a time to build a temporary fortress. Every night, if there is no pre-existing fort or established camp, the Legion constructs a castra, a fortified camp. You, along with your comrades, will spend hours digging a V-shaped ditch, 2 meters deep and 2 meters wide, around the perimeter. Then the excavated earth is piled inwards, reinforced with timber and fascines, bundles of branches, to create a rampart, often topped with sharpened stakes. Towers might rise, gates are constructed. All of this, after a full day's march, under the watchful eyes of centurions who demand perfection. The security of the entire legion and your very life depends on the speed and precision of this nightly ritual. Within this quickly assembled fortress, the routine of duty continues. Guard shifts, maintenance of equipment, communal cooking over smoky fires. The air in the camp is thick with the scent of damp earth, wood smoke, sweat, and perhaps the faint metallic tang of unwashed bodies. The sounds are a low hum of activity, the clink of tools, the murmur of tired voices, the occasional sharp command. Sleep, when it finally arrives, is often fitful, on a rough bedroll, shared with several other men in a cramped leather tent, never truly escaping the constant awareness of your surroundings. This was your existence, a life of unceasing physical labor, rigid discipline and constant exposure. The threat of battle, while always present, was often less frequent than the slow, grinding reality of disease, injury from accidents, or the quiet despair of relentless routine. There were no weekends, no holidays, no comfortable beds or hot meals waiting for you. There was only the legion, the road, and the stark, unyielding demands of an empire that expected everything from its soldiers.
Now let's gently shift our gaze from the dusty, disciplined life of the legionary to the opulent, yet increasingly volatile heart of the empire itself, the imperial palace. Here, power was absolute, but often fleeting, and the weight of the world could rest upon the shoulders of one individual, sometimes one far too young to bear it. Our focus now turns to a figure whose brief reign, from 218 to 222 AD, remains one of the most peculiar and often scandalous in Roman history: the young Emperor Elagabalus. Born Varius Avitus Bassianus, he ascended to the throne at the tender age of 14, propelled by the machinations of his ambitious grandmother and mother, who claimed he was the illegitimate son of the previous emperor, Caracalla. This was a claim of divine right, a desperate attempt to restore their family's lineage to power. Imagine, if you can, the sudden transition from a quiet priestly life in Emesa, Syria, to the overwhelming grandeur and suffocating political intrigue of Rome. Elagabalus was a priest of the Syrian sun god, Elagabal, a deity represented by a sacred black stone. When he arrived in Rome, he brought his god with him, literally. He attempted to establish the cult of Elagabal as the supreme deity of the Roman pantheon, an act that deeply unsettled the traditional Roman aristocracy and priesthood. His reign was marked by a series of unconventional and, to the Romans, deeply shocking behaviors. Picture the solemn Roman Senate, accustomed to centuries of tradition and decorum, suddenly faced with an emperor who insisted on dressing in flowing silk robes adorned with jewels rather than the sober imperial toga. He wore makeup, powdered his face, and was said to prefer the company of actors, dancers, and charioteers over the seasoned politicians and military commanders who expected deference. His personal life was equally, if not more, startling. He married several women, including a Vestal Virgin, a sacrilegious act that horrified the devout. Rumors, undoubtedly exaggerated by his enemies, but hinting at a truth, painted a picture of an emperor who openly challenged Roman gender norms, dressed as a woman, and even offered vast sums to any physician who could perform a sex change operation. He appointed male lovers to high office, further alienating the traditional Roman elite. His feasts were legendary for their extravagance and peculiarity. Accounts, though again likely embellished, describe banquets where guests were showered with flowers until they suffocated, or served dishes that were more spectacle than sustenance. The sheer opulence, the disregard for Roman sensibilities, and his unwavering devotion to his foreign sun god created an atmosphere of constant tension and resentment within the palace and among the Roman populace. The young emperor seemed to live in a world of his own making, detached from the weighty responsibilities of governing a vast empire. While the legions guarded the borders and the bureaucracy labored, Elagabalus was consumed by his religious ceremonies, his lavish parties, and his unconventional lifestyle. This detachment, combined with his alienating behavior, eroded his support base faster than any military defeat. His grandmother, Julia Maesa, who had engineered his rise to power, soon realized the precariousness of their position. The Praetorian Guard, the emperor's elite bodyguards, became increasingly restless, weary of his antics and the instability he created. The very people who had put him on the throne began to conspire against him. The whispers of discontent grew into a roar of defiance. The tragic end came abruptly. At just 18 years old, Elagabalus, along with his mother, was assassinated by the Praetorian Guard. Their bodies were dragged through the streets of Rome, a brutal and public rejection of his reign, and ultimately thrown into the Tiber River. The Roman world, horrified and exhausted by his excesses, quickly moved to erase his memory, condemning him to damnatio memoriae, the damnation of memory, where his name was struck from inscriptions and his statues destroyed. The story of Elagabalus is a vivid, though unsettling reminder of the immense pressure and psychological fragility that could come with absolute power, particularly when wielded by someone so young and so utterly at odds with the established norms of their society. His brief reign, though often dismissed as a footnote of imperial eccentricity, reveals the deep currents of cultural conflict and political instability that constantly swirled beneath the surface of the seemingly monolithic Roman Empire. As you consider this unusual chapter, allow the echoes of ancient intrigue to fade, leaving only the quiet pulse of history. From the decadent halls of power, let us now turn our attention to the unforgiving vastness of the desert, where a different kind of Roman story unfolded, one of ambition, hubris, and an enduring mystery. We journey back in time to the year 53 BC, a period when the Roman Republic was at the height of its expansion, yet vulnerable to powerful, often underestimated foes. Our focus is on the arid plains near Carrhae, a place that would forever be etched into Roman memory as a site of catastrophic defeat. The central figure in this tragedy was Marcus Licinius Crassus, a man of immense wealth, a member of the first triumvirate alongside Julius Caesar and Pompey. Crassus, not content with his riches and political influence, yearned for military glory, a triumph that would elevate him to the same legendary status as his peers. He set his sights on the Parthian Empire, a formidable rival to the east, known for its skilled horse archers and heavy cavalry. Imagine for a moment the sheer confidence, perhaps bordering on arrogance, with which Crassus led his legions into the sprawling, unfamiliar Mesopotamian desert. He commanded some 40,000 Roman soldiers, a force that had conquered much of the known world. Yet he made critical strategic errors. He ignored advice from local allies who understood the terrain and the Parthian fighting style. He marched his heavy infantry across open plains, far from water sources and any defensive cover, leaving them exposed and vulnerable. The Parthians, under their brilliant general Surena, were not a conventional army. They avoided pitched battles in close quarters, where Roman legions excelled. Instead, they employed a terrifyingly effective hit-and-run tactic. Picture waves of Parthian horse archers moving with astonishing speed, showering the Roman ranks with arrows designed to pierce Roman armor. Unlike Roman arrows, which were often aimed to wound, Parthian arrows were deadly, often tipped with bronze or iron, designed to penetrate flesh and bone. The Romans, accustomed to closing ranks and engaging in hand-to-hand combat, found themselves helpless. Their pila, their throwing spears, were effective only at close range, a distance the Parthians rarely allowed. Roman shields, while offering some protection, could not entirely deflect the relentless storm of arrows. Hour after hour, under the scorching sun, the legionaries stood, taking casualties, unable to retaliate effectively. The constant buzzing sound of thousands of arrows, the thud as they struck shields or found their mark, must have been a terrifying, demoralizing symphony. When the Roman line finally faltered, the Parthian heavy cavalry, the cataphracts, heavily armored horsemen and horses, delivered the crushing blow. The result was a massacre. Of the 40,000 Roman soldiers, nearly 20,000 were killed, and approximately 10,000 were captured. Crassus himself was killed, his head reportedly severed and used as a prop in a Greek play at the Parthian court. But it is the fate of the Lost Legions, the 10,000 captured Romans, that fuels the enduring mystery. What became of them? Roman sources are vague, but later accounts and archaeological evidence hint at a remarkable journey. It is believed that these prisoners of war were marched deep into Parthian territory, far to the east, perhaps settled as frontier guards in remote outposts. One intriguing theory, supported by some historical and archaeological clues, suggests that some of these captured legionaries may have been resettled on the eastern frontiers of the Parthian Empire, near the border with Han China. Here, they might have intermarried with local populations, potentially even influencing local military tactics. The story of a Roman legionary meeting a Han Chinese army in a distant land, thousands of miles from Rome, is a tantalizing thought that speaks to the vastness of the ancient world's interconnectedness. Decades later, the shame of Carrhae and the loss of the Roman standards remained a deep wound for Rome. The Emperor Augustus, through painstaking diplomatic efforts, eventually managed to negotiate the return of the captured standards, the eagles that symbolized the very soul of the legions. It was a significant political victory, but it did not bring back the lost men. Their precise fates remain largely unknown, swallowed by the sands of time and the vast distances of the ancient world. The Battle of Carrhae stands as a stark reminder that even the most powerful empire could be humbled, and that history's mysteries often lie not in grand events, but in the quiet, unrecorded lives of those who were lost to the vastness of an unforgiving world. Allow this ancient enigma to softly settle in your mind as we prepare to shift our focus once more. From the parched, blood-soaked sands of Carrhae and the gritty discipline of the marching legion, let us gently pivot our focus once more and imagine a profound shift in circumstance. Picture yourself no longer a common soldier, but a member of Rome's privileged elite, living in a sprawling, elegant Roman villa. This was a world removed from the everyday struggle, a haven of comfort, culture, and quiet luxury, built upon the foundations of the empire we've just explored. The rhythm of life here was vastly different. Instead of a pre-dawn trumpet, your day might begin with the soft light filtering through a high window, or perhaps the quiet movements of a personal slave preparing your bath. The air here within the enclosed gardens and cool marble halls carried the scent of freshly pressed olive oil, fragrant herbs, and the distant roar of household activity, a stark contrast to the dust and sweat of the military camp. The core of a Roman villa revolved around the paterfamilias, the male head of the household. His morning ritual, the salutatio, was a pivotal social event. Imagine clients and freedmen, dressed in their finest, waiting patiently in the atrium, the main reception hall with its open roof and rainwater pool. They would greet the paterfamilias, seeking favors, offering their loyalty, a complex dance of social obligation and power dynamics. This daily exchange solidified his status and influence within the city and beyond. Breakfast was a light affair, perhaps bread dipped in wine, olives, or fruit. The remainder of the morning was dedicated to business. The paterfamilias might attend to legal matters, oversee his estates, manage investments, or participate in political discussions in the forum. His wife, the matrona, while often confined to the more private areas of the house, held significant influence within the domestic sphere. She managed the household, supervised the slaves, and oversaw the children's education. Her days, too, were structured, though less exposed to public life. The heart of the villa was often the peristyle garden, an open-air courtyard surrounded by columns, often adorned with frescoes, statues, and tranquil fountains. Imagine the gentle splash of water, the delicate scent of roses or citrus, a peaceful sanctuary from the heat and noise of the city. This was a space for quiet contemplation, for family gatherings, or for receiving intimate friends. Lunch was typically a light meal, followed by the most anticipated part of the day, the baths. Roman baths were not merely for hygiene, they were social hubs, centers of relaxation, exercise, and networking. Picture yourself moving through the various rooms. The apoditerium for undressing, the palaestra for exercise, the tepidarium, warm room, the caldarium, hot room, and the frigidarium, cold plunge. The communal experience of the baths, the quiet hum of conversations, the feeling of warmth seeping into tired muscles. It was a daily ritual of renewal and connection. Evenings were often dedicated to elaborate dinner parties or convivia. These were not just meals, they were carefully choreographed social events. Recline on cushioned couches as servants bring forth multiple courses, perhaps exotic delicacies, fresh seafood, or succulent roasted meats. The air might be heavy with the scent of spices and fine wines. Entertainment, from musicians and dancers to philosophers and poets, might accompany the meal. These dinners were opportunities for the elite to display their wealth, cultivate alliances, and engage in sophisticated conversation. The sheer abundance of food, the richness of the flavors, the luxury of the setting stood in stark contrast to the meager rations of a legionary. Below the surface of this opulent life, however, lay the reliance on slavery. The intricate workings of the Roman villa, from the preparation of meals to the maintenance of the grounds, depended entirely on the labor of slaves. Their lives were dictated by their masters, their days a ceaseless cycle of tasks, providing the foundation for the leisure and luxury enjoyed by the elite. This unspoken undercurrent of social hierarchy was an undeniable aspect of Roman domestic life. Life in a Roman villa was a testament to the sophistication and comfort that immense wealth and imperial power could command. It was a world of learned discourse, artistic appreciation, and carefully cultivated social circles, a stark reflection of the contrasting fortunes within the vast Roman Empire. As we bring our journey through these ancient landscapes to a close, allow the images of Roman life in all its complexity to gently fade. And so, our journey through these diverse historical landscapes comes to a peaceful end. We've traversed the arduous paths of Roman legionaries, navigated the scandalous courts of forgotten emperors, pondered the enduring mysteries of lost armies and ancient plagues, and glimpsed the contrasting realities of life in both humble hovels and opulent villas. Each vignette, a quiet whisper from the past, designed to offer a different kind of immersion, a tranquil space for the mind to wander. As the echoes of ancient history soften and recede, let the detailed yet unhurried cadence of these stories gently guide you away from the concerns of the present. Feel the quietness settle around you, knowing that the struggles and triumphs of these distant lives have played out, leaving only the calm lessons of time. Allow your breath to deepen, your thoughts to still, and drift now into a profound and restful sleep. Good night.